Corey Joseph never chose the LG G6, he would have never thought of the word. Toofy.
You can use the front and back cameras at the same time.
Or take a wide angle.
Check this out.
Use both cameras to take a double selfie.
That's new.
That's a Toofy. You show them where you are and who you are. I'm liking this. So, take it from Corey. Take a Toofy today.
He comes flat time, he comes real slowly, he got juju eyeball, he got holy roller, he got head down to his feet. Got to be a joker, he just do what he please. Come get he will shoot shot, he got told you football, he got lucky finger, he shot Coca-Cola, he said, I know you, you know me. One thing I can tell you, he has got to be free. Come together right now. Oh, me. He bagged production, he got more scope, he got motorcycle, he got final cracker, he got he down all his things. Oh, you something to eat, you come together like that. Oh, me. Welcome back, guys. Music podcasts. See, people ask you who was the best who came out of England. To me, was definitely the Beatles. Because people ask me why them. Because the Beatles were like the band. They were the ones who really broke the British music scene open. Because back in the way before there were a lot of great bands, the Beatles, to me, they were the ones who took the British music scene and they made it what it was. I mean, you think of every big name track that the Beatles have done, including the one you guys heard in the opener, Come Together. Back when the Beatles were like still relevant, they were the ones that made it so cool. They were the Beatles, to me, in my knowledge, they were like the very first boy pop band. Way before a who's who of other pop bands that took over. Because, see, I remember the first time I first heard the Beatles was listening to the track Come Together. That was a track that really put the Beatles on the market. Because when the Beatles, because you got Paul McCartney, you got Ringo Starr, you got George Harrison, Those guys were like the quintessential godfathers of the British music scene. I know most people can say that Oasis were kind of like a startup of the British music scene because Oasis during their time of existence, I mean, you got Oasis for my brothers, Lee and Will Gallagher. They can also say that they were the ones who started the British music scene because we think of Oasis, we think of Wonderwall, we think of Chaplin, Supernova. Those are the two main Oasis tracks that really put Oasis on the market. And then you got Coldplay, who's from England. They also could say that Coldplay was like the quintessential band that came after like Oasis was kind of like just fade away, classic, sounded obsolete. And then you got bands like Bush, who's from that area too. And don't get me wrong, Bush to me was like their style of music was just like they kind of swept under the rug. They're not getting the proper respect. But when you think of the British music scene, to me, the Beatles were like a who's who of the very first British pop band. People ask me what makes the Beatles so cool because I mean if it wasn't for Come Together being that big hit song, bands like Godsmack wouldn't make that song cool. But when you think of the Beatles, I mean you got John Lennon being that guy that always thought he was always I mean, say what you want about John Lennon, he was like the man. Like he's always kind of like done his own thing to make the Beatles where they are. Paul McCartney, cheerio, mate. I mean, Paul McCartney was the man who made the Beatles stuck like glue. George Harrison, he kind of just went all spiritual and all that kind of route, and he just kind of went disintegrated. And that was probably the end of the Beatles, but luckily Paul McCartney, Ringo Starr, two of the guys that made the Beatles where they are, and they're still doing their own thing. They're still trying to think they can relive the glory years again, but they're still relevant. They're still out there playing out stuff. And when you think of the Beatles, you think of Ringo Starr. He was the man. He was like the quintessential drummer. But when you think of Oasis, I mean, it's quite fitting how that band kind of just went belly up because Noel and Gallagher, they couldn't agree if they could make the Beatles kind of like stuck. Because the Beatles, they were like this throughout many years, and then they just been like